I'd have never thought I'd have been talking you into this many podcasts.
Yeah, how many have we done? 2?
This will be number 3. Because you're my first ever, which I listened back to that the other day. It was kind of funny because
you've learned a lot since
then. I've learned a whole lot.
You listen to podcasts?
Yeah.
You know, podcasts are fun. I only listen to them when I'm driving.
Yeah.
Boy, they'll make a drive go by. And it's funny how you can listen to a podcast on somebody you don't know anything about them really and give a shit anything about them, but it's still good because it's so in depth. Where it's
I mean there's a chance for us to explore thoughts about whatever instead of a lot of times
everything used to be a soundbite before podcasts. You know, like if you did a 4-minute interview, that was a long fucking interview.
Yeah.
4 minutes. And really 2 minutes was a long interview. And there were times that you had like literally 1 minute. And especially if you were promoting something, you're trying to squeeze that in, and then it was over. You know?
Was that kind of easy for you early on in your career? I'm sure people started wanting to talk to you. Like once you start having some success, did you ever feel like that was uncomfortable, or was it always kind of just a normal thing? Talking to people.
I feel like it came on in a gradual way that got me used to it. So, it started when I was in junior rodeos and like little britches type stuff. And I can remember when it was hard, and you were nervous and all those sort of things. But I feel like it started coming on early enough and gradually enough that you just get used to it.
Yeah. It never was a big event. I was listening to that Matthew McConaughey book, Green Lights. He's just talking about the day he turned famous. It was like one day it was like this. The next day it was like this. And it was like a very stark difference. Like he's walking down the sidewalk and nobody recognizes him. Next day walking down the same sidewalk. Everybody recognizes him. I thought that was a pretty, good illustration of how that can happen and how it could be really hard to figure out which way's up in that situation. Like, I'm no different person than I was yesterday, but all of a sudden, everybody thinks I am.
Yeah, you're looked at real differently, I think. Yeah. And like sometimes you'll see somebody that's maybe shy that achieved some success or fame or whatever you want to call it in something, and then now he's stuck up.
Right.
Where today, not the day before, but before they thought he was famous, he was shy, and and there's that sort of thing. I think it's also not just one thing. It's like you have. For me, I think it was a gradual thing as well. Whatever level of fame, I don't even know what you'd say about that, but it was gradual in some ways, and it was faster in other little, micro society or microcosms of, like in the, and then like you do something like Dancing with the Stars, and there's 25 million people a week watching it, and that goes to a level that you didn't even know. That's a...
Have you ever been like scared to just go out in public just because you're like, man, I don't want to have to deal with that?
I don't know if you say scared, but there's times that you don't want to deal with it.
Might choose to. Let's just stay home.
I often think about people, and me and my wife talk about this. Whenever you see somebody that's like uber famous, like a Michael Jordan, Elvis Presley type. Somebody that really the whole world knows. Yeah. I feel like I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. I feel like that takes you to a place that, even not even, you don't even have to go to that level. If you just go to sometimes a level of like your kind of everyday movie star or singer or something like that, it can be there's times it's awesome, but there's also a lot of times that you wish it wasn't that way, and it don't go away.
Right. I hope people hear if you're thinking that being famous is a thing you want, almost any person I've ever talked to that is famous on some level will say what you just said. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. To have that level of notoriety and the way everybody feels like they know you. I heard somebody say it about Michael Jordan. Everybody thinks they know Michael Jordan. You know, they know about Michael Jordan, but they don't know Michael Jordan. So that's kind of just really think about it. You may end up getting famous by accident or because you were a high performer, but don't go into it thinking that's going to be great, because I've never heard anybody say,
I'd agree
that's
with that.
the thing they want.
I think some people think that. I think some people look at it the same way they look at money, and they think they're going to get happiness from it. But you're not going to get happiness from either one.
Yeah.
You know, or both.
Yeah.
You know, you see, you don't have to look much past Los Angeles to see that.
Yeah.
And you know, for me, I don't think that I ever said I want to be a famous cowboy. I wanted to be the best cowboy. That was my, that was kind of the goal that I was going for. And I think that was more to show, and I guess there's times that you want to show other people or the world or whatever, but mainly it felt like I was trying to reach a benchmark that I had set for myself. And that, what Larry Mahan was able to do really inspired me and really drove me. And it, it had me set goals for myself that I believed I could achieve. And then I got to go see how much it took and how much work and time and effort and blood and sweat and tears goes into that. But it was my passion, and I think passion is the thing that, I think that's where happiness comes from. I think that having something that you believe in and that you love and that you think about all the time without trying to, that's what I hope for my kids. I don't care what they make money-wise, and I don't care who knows about it. For me, if they're able to get by making a living, whether it be an okay living or a great living, but if they can do something that excites them every day and they're not just going and punching a clock for the man, doing something they don't even really care about, that to me is prison. And so,
well, I'm curious because I think about this. Your kids are being raised by you, and you've got a certain living you've been able to make. And it's good. It's not billionaire status, but it's not punching the clock every day either. So how are you going to navigate that when it comes time to navigate that? I think about that quite a bit with, like, the girls are kind of spoiled in a few ways with the things we get to do, the things I'm able to provide. Does that cross your mind? Do you ever think about something like that? Are you going to be able to not help them? Because they may look up and say, Dad, well, I mean, how come I can't have 6 horses?
right.
Well, you don't have that financial wherewithal.
I think that it starts immediately. I think it starts when you have them. My daughter's 5, my son's 12. And the other thing is I don't have a roadmap because I didn't grow up with any money. And so, I know the way that my parents raised me, but they were in a different situation than the situation that I'm in now. And, my wife, Paige, and I, we try to be conscious of this a lot. We were talking about it just this morning, about Oakley having chores. And we were talking about, like, we never had allowances. We had chores.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so we were talking about it, and we kind of both lean towards allowance because we think that it's a good way to start getting her prepared for the world, of understanding you've got to do this to make this, and if you blow it all on candy, you may not get the toy you wanted 2 months from now, or whatever it may be. but we feel like that is a way for them to start learning how the world works and how risk and reward or work and reward and all that different stuff kind of plays into it, and how you don't just to where you start to understand the value of a dollar. But there's this parent stuff. I always tell Paige it's like somebody giving you a colt, but you've never been around horses, and you got this one crack to figure it out, and you don't know if you don't know if what you're doing is and it's a delayed process. So what you're doing now, you may not really know the outcome of how you're doing it till years from now.
Yeah.
And so it's as anybody that's a parent knows, it's not for the faint of heart, and it's a very, very tough job, and you don't have there's not an instruction manual, and then every kid's different. Like my two kids, they're polar opposite.
Yeah, that's right.
And so it's the greatest, hardest thing you'll ever do.
Have you bumped into any of the drama in life that comes in a kid's life, it's like just the drama of being friends.
Especially girls.
Well, girls especially, and then sometimes it's actually the parents of the other kids that are the drama. You bumped into any of that yet?
Yeah, I think so. I think we bump into that quite a lot. And, we're in a unique position. We're lucky to have the life that we have. We're lucky to have the environment that we're able to raise our kids in, we feel like. And then our kids also get exposed to a lot of different things because of our lifestyle that I didn't necessarily get exposed to at a young age. Like my son, he's already been more places and seen more things than most adults you're going to meet. And I mean like more than 90.
Yeah, like all of them.
Like all of them, yeah. Like more than me.
Yeah.
And so, so sometimes that's hard to know how to navigate that. It's hard to, like a lot of times my son and I are really different in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And that is a challenge, and it's not really negative. We've always loved each other and had a great relationship, but I think it's probably harder for me than it is him, because I'm the adult trying to figure what's the next right move.
Yeah. And
sometimes with him, I don't really know, because him and I are so different in so many ways. And then like my daughter, she's like a little miniature me. I know what she's thinking before she's thinking it, and so, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's easier. It's just different.
Right. Yeah. That's 100% true. I find that with my daughters, and like I'll have one thing I really connect with one of them about, just because that's the thing that they like and I like too, and we really understand each other's perspective on it. And then the next one, it'll be a different thing.
Yeah.
I'm kind of aggressive, or I've just always approached most every situation with like, okay, put me in, coach. I want to play. And to have a kid that's more like, well, I'm going to stay over here on the sideline until I really understand everything that's happening. Then I'll go get in and I'll try hard, but don't just throw me out there without me knowing exactly everything. So that's an interesting dynamic, because I'm like, well, what are you doing? Get out there, go.
Right.
And then so they think, I spend a lot of time telling my kids, you understand, none of this affects my love for you. Like, I love you. Nothing can take that away, make it bigger or nothing. But I'm going to challenge you. I think it's my job to expect you to do stuff that you're uncomfortable with. They don't like that. I mean, nobody does. I don't like that particularly. But it gives them a chance to learn something that they can use later.
Yeah, I heard a quote this morning that said, don't prepare the path for your children, prepare your children for the path. And I thought that was a good quote, and it's something, and I tend to my natural tendency is to make everything wonderful for them.
Right.
And I have to remind myself on a daily basis that they've got to struggle, they've got to hit, they've got to crash and burn sometimes, and making yourself do that when your tendency is to, oh, don't fall, oh, I've saved you, oh, I'll protect you, that's my natural tendency. So I have to be aware. I have to constantly be reminding myself and try to be aware to don't let them get wiped out.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they are going to need to scuff a knee here and there.
It's almost stealing an opportunity from them if you don't let them do that.
Mm.
I mean, you think you would have ever got where you got without your mom and dad just kind of saying, go get them,
Yeah.
And not, I perceive this, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't feel like Bush and Joy were helicoptering you very much at all.
No, and I think my dad, I'm like my dad. I think my dad's tendency was more to keep you safe.
Yeah.
And mom's tendency was more to, oh, you can do it. And what I think my parents did really well was I think they truly believed in me, but they always told me, they always made me think I was good before I was good.
Yeah.
And then it's like the chicken or the egg. When you think you're good, then it's easy to get better at it because you like it and you want to practice it or whatever it may be, or you want to do it. And they kind of did that in every aspect of my life. Yeah. And I can look back and see the confidence. Like they told me how good looking I was my whole life.
Yeah.
I look in the mirror sometimes and I think, boy, I don't look near like they.
I don't look as good as they made me feel like I looked.
Made me feel like I looked.
Yeah.
But that gives you a confidence.
Yeah.
I never felt insecure about anything. Not, when I was I was immature for a long time, like physically.
Yeah.
Like I had hair under my arms like my second year of college.
Yeah.
And that's just how I was. But I had a confidence, that I know it came straight from my parents. Always being interested in what I was into and always being behind me and telling me how good they thought I was, or how good, you tried so good, or, stuff like that. And that's something that I really try to carry forward.
Yeah.
With my kids is I want them to have that confidence, because I just look at, so many of the things in life I have to compare to sport, because that's what I know. Whether it's the sports I did growing up or the sport I did as a living in riding. Whenever you have confidence, that's the number one thing. If you can give somebody something, because the mechanics are the mechanics, the natural talent is what it is. How hard you work at it, that's one thing. But when you see somebody with confidence, that's the game changer. And so I feel like that's important in no matter if it's in life, business, your relationships, or whatever it is that you're trying to pursue.
Do you think you can fake that?
No, I don't think.
You know it. Like everybody in the room knows it. It's not a generally, they don't walk in saying, hey, I'm confident either. Like the real people that are confident. Right. They don't come in there telling you about it.
They just show you.
Yeah, that's right. Which gets me a little perplexed with Deion Sanders. Have you seen any? He went off and he's over there coaching the Colorado Buffaloes.
I know about that.
And he's just really, he's just always talking about how great they are and they're backing it up. I mean, he's talking it and he is backing it up. Sometimes I wonder what the method to that madness is. I don't doubt Deion much. I think he's proven he's capable, But why all the talking about it so much? Maybe that's just a personality thing for him.
That's probably right. That's what I would chalk it up to. But regardless, if you're outspoken and boisterous or whatever, or if you're quiet and shy, I think that confidence is still the key.
Yeah.
And it like you say, it's not a fabricated, made up,
I'm gonna fake it till I make it. No.
Well, I think confidence is gained in all different ways. But you got to figure out for you what gives you confidence. Like for me, when I was riding, practice, preparation, and training, those are the things that made me confident. And so I always tried to do those things. And
did you ever lose confidence when you got bucked off?
all the time. And that's something that you battle with, or I battled with my whole career. Not battled with, but it's something that is there all the time. And you don't get to a point that you like
it
pass
goes
that
away.
up. It doesn't go away. And it's no different like for Tom Brady. He goes out and throws 3 interceptions right off the bat. He's got to work. He's not going to just still be going, it doesn't work that way. And so whenever you ride like me, I always say I rode about 6,000 times. And so when it's that much, there's lots of times that it goes south on you. And then you've got to learn how to trust yourself to get back on track, because when you start overthinking it, pretty soon you're fixing things that wasn't even broke in the first place.
Yeah.
And that's something that I feel like that never went away. That was something that I had to be mindful of my whole career up till when I quit.
Yeah. Oh, that's great insight, man. It wants me to say yeehaw, because I personally can look at a guy like you that accomplished what you did. I'm just picking you because you're sitting here, and just think, they must have figured out how to never lose that confidence. But that's BS. You lose it every time something goes wrong. You figured out how to get it back, or to get back up. I mean, somebody said it like this: the champions are just the fast get back uppers. They're just the fastest get back uppers, because we're all going to fall.
Yeah, and I always tell people, people always be like, oh, well, yeah, sure, well, you don't get bucked off. I'm like, I've been bucked off more than you and all your family and friends put together, I promise you. And I think that especially sport, but really so many things in life, and especially while we're talking about confidence, so much of it's here.
Yeah.
Like that, and I'm talking about in a lot of different ways, not just confidence-wise. So many things are in your mind. Like, for an example, I was thinking of an example earlier today. Like, if I laid a 2x4 down on the ground and told you, walk across that 2x4, you could walk across that 2x4 like a balance beam, no problem. You wouldn't even have to think about it. Now, if I put that 2x4 up 100 feet in the air, now all of a sudden that got really hard, but nothing changed.
Yeah.
It's still just a 2x4, but now the price is higher if you messed up.
Yeah.
And it's funny how your brain makes it almost impossible for you to now walk that 2x4 that when it was on the ground you didn't even have to think about it. And so to me that's a great little example of, it's just mental. The 2x4 didn't change, and how hard it is to walk across 2x4 really didn't change, just the circumstances did. And if you can teach your mind to think that 2x4 is still on the ground, then you're going to have a way, way, way better chance of doing it. And that's kind of how I feel like my whole career felt, was you're finding ways to trick your brain. Especially it's hard, but it's also super scary. And so it's like twofold.
Yeah.
And so, learning how to trick your brain to where it always feels like that 2x4 is on the ground, that's a trick. And it's something that you have to develop and figure out for yourself. And it isn't something that anybody can teach, because everybody's brain works different.
Yeah. Do you think you stair-stepped yourself there? Was it partly that you did it from a young age and you were able to kind of figure that trick out along the way, instead of maybe, I don't know, somebody's doing something right from like 0 to crazy hard? I don't know if anybody even does that. Almost everybody stair-steps is training a horse and everything. Pick it off a little at a time.
Right. So I was going to say definitely stair-stepped, but it was like I was saying, I never arrived. I just got better at it.
Yeah.
But it was still something that could come up at any time. You know, losing confidence or not being at your best or not being focused or, you know, a lot of different ways that things can kind of go wrong. An injury, pain, a bull that's wiped you out 3 times before.
Yeah.
You know, those sort of things, and learning how to try to get your brain to overcome them, I think you get better at it, but it's not ever something that you go, okay, I got that figured out, I never have to worry about that again. That for me, that never happened.
Yeah. Let's talk about Larry Mahan a little bit. What's a couple stories you like to tell about y'all's relationship? Or like you looked up to him, he gave you inspiration to go try to be the greatest cowboy ever. But you actually knew him too. So what's that like?
Well, I didn't know him as a kid growing up, but he was my hero. So he was the guy, you know, that was winning the all-arounds. He did the 3 events that I was enamored by. You know, he won 6 all-around world championships, 2 bull riding world championships. He rode great in all the events, and so he was my hero. He's the one that, you know, set the benchmark for me that I chased my whole professional career. And he saw me at the Little Britches National Finals Rodeo in Colorado Springs. He had a ranch in Guffey, and he was down there for some reason. I didn't even know he was there. And he saw me ride, and he found my dad, actually, and he told my dad, he said, you ought to bring Ty out to the house. He had a place in Phoenix where I lived in the wintertime in Arizona. And we didn't take him up on it because we just thought he was being nice, you know. We didn't, and he called us again. He got a hold of us, and he's like, hey, I'm serious, bring him out. Well, we went out there, and, you know, I mean, that was like, you know, if you're a kid wanting to play quarterback, and Tom Brady does that. Right. That's what it felt like to me. So we went out there, and I spent an afternoon with him, and after that, he called me like a week later and invited me to come spend a summer with him. Well, at that time, I was 13, and I was just starting to ride saddle bronc horses. And so you're asking me one of my favorite stories. So the first airplane I ever got on in my life was when I was 13, flying to Colorado Springs to go spend the summer with Larry. That was the first airplane I was ever on. Well, I got there and he picked me up, and the next morning we were flying to Arizona to speak to some delinquent kids that had, you know, kids that had been in trouble, and it was like a big camp for them, and there was a lot of them. And we're flying in Larry's little private, you know, airplane, and he's the pilot. And so we get in there, and I'm 13, I'm little, I look like I'm 9, and the dash is up here, you know, and there's all these gauges, and we take off, and I mean, I'm kind of sitting there about half scared, and I don't really know anything about it. And Larry says, okay, this is the altimeter, you know, this is the yoke, you pull back, you go up, you push forward, you go down, your right pedal here helps you turn, and your left foot helps you turn, this and that. You know, he gives me like maybe a 2-minute crash course in the airplane. And then he reaches behind his seat and he pulls out a pillow and he fluffs it up, and he says, I'm going to take a nap. He said, just keep the dash level with the horizon. And he snuggles down. I mean, I don't even know him. You know, this is like the first day I'm ever with him.
Right.
And I'm 13. I've never been nowhere. It's the second airplane I've ever been on. And I can't even see over the dash to keep it level with the horizon. And I'm just white-knuckling it thinking, holy cow, this guy is crazy, you know. And I'm just trying, and he faked like he was asleep for like, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes. And then he yawned and stretched, and he said, okay, I got it now. But he would do stuff like that all the time. I think he was just curious what I would do.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I didn't understand at that time, even when he acted like he woke up, I didn't understand he was joking, or, you know, I didn't understand he was faking it.
Right.
I thought he really took a little nap. And I think he thought.
Did he just see something in you at that age? He was just like, I'm gonna just kind of to help this kid. And there was probably a lesson. Do you think there was a lesson in that, or he just wanted to see what you would do?
I don't know. I think
He might wanted to know.
I think he wanted to see what I would do.
Are you going to fold under the pressure, or are you going to...
I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
So then we get to this place where he's talking to all these kids. And there's literally like, I don't know how many, 500 people, 1,000 people. I don't know. It was a big building. It was completely full of people. And I've never been anywhere, really. And he gets up there and he's at a podium and he's talking to all these people. And I'm just in the back just watching, you know. And then he says, and there's an upcoming cowboy that's going to set the world on fire. And he'd like to come up and speak with you right now. Come on up, Ty. And I mean, I'm like not wanting to at all. But there's my hero. And he just called me up there in front of all these people. And I went up there, I don't even remember what I said, I went up there and said something. But that was kind of like one of these little tests that he liked to do just to see what I would do and how I would handle it. And I didn't understand any of that at the time. I just thought, this guy, holy cow, but.
Can I go home? I mean, this guy's crazy.
He said, and I don't know for sure why he picked me or anything, but I asked him, when I was a man, I said, why'd you have me come live with you? And he said, I went to a Little Britches rodeo and watched a kid that I thought prepared himself better than I was, or any of the guys I traveled with was at that time. And he said, and then watching you ride, he said, I saw you ride a bull that might have thrown me off, he said, is what he said.
Yeah.
And he said, so I wanted to see what made you tick, is how he said it. And then, the funny thing is he never taught me one thing about riding. He didn't even talk about riding the whole time I was with him. But the lessons that he did teach me, he talked to me a lot about. He not only talked to me about it, but he showed me the way he didn't shy away from interviews. He didn't shy away from doing sponsorship type of commercials type, all that stuff, where back, really not only just in his day, but when I was riding too, there's so many cowboys that if it wasn't cowboy, they didn't want anything to do with it, and they didn't care about talking to the newspaper lady or the news lady or whoever it was. They were like, no, we're going to the beer garden. I ain't got, and that was kind of the mentality that I think was around big time when he was riding, and it was still around plenty when I was. And he always talked to me about the importance of that, and he showed me, through example too. And when I look back on my life and career, that was a big thing for me, because when I was a kid, especially like at that time when I was with him, if it didn't have something to do with cowboying or riding, I didn't care about it. Yeah. I didn't care about it not one lick. And so him showing me that side of it and explaining to me why it was important, and he said, and don't, he says, when you're talking, he said, nobody in the world has any idea what it's like to come out of a chute on a bull. He said, so go into it and explain to them the details of what it's like, what it felt like, smelled like, tasted like, looked like. He's like, and he was telling me this stuff as a 13-year-old kid, and that would have never crossed my mind, because I was a rodeo kid that my little world, everybody rodeoed.
Right.
I thought everybody in the world knew about it.
Yeah.
And so those were, looking back, he taught me some things that I really needed to know. And when I asked him, I said, how come you, as a man, I said, how come you never showed me anything about riding? He said, you didn't need to know anything about riding. He said, you had that part. He said, you had that part covered. And he could see that I needed this other part.
Did you ever do something similar with somebody else?
I've tried to help every kid that's ever come to me.
Yeah.
That wasn't, and I've also been very honest.
Yeah.
When I see a kid that can't do a pull-up, that comes to a bull riding school that I've had, this ain't stamp collecting.
Yeah.
If you can pay the ultimate price in this game. This isn't a fun little hobby. It's not something that you do because your dad wishes he would have, or your girlfriend thinks it's cool, or all your buddies are doing it. But especially like when I see a kid that I can tell wants it bad, and they're ate up with it, and they have the ability and the work ethic and the try. I give them everything that I've got.
Yeah.
And
I was talking to somebody, I can't remember who it was, but it might have been Clinton Anderson. He said something like, in his experience, and mine too, people that have had success and built a career, they really enjoy and want to share what they have. I mean, you're not trying to hoard it and keep it a secret so you can make sure nobody ever does what you did. I mean, I bet that was even true in your career. Like in rodeo as a whole, everybody's sharing what they're thinking about or how they're doing it and trying to help the other people be the best they can be. That's a cool piece of it. Like, if we can get everybody to be the best they can be and I still come out on top, I know that's mine. I earned it.
I always felt this way as far back as I can remember, that I wanted to beat the best. I didn't, you know what I mean? I didn't want to slip off and go to this rodeo over here because it was going to be easy, or go back east, or any of that stuff. You know, I wanted to be at the biggest show with the biggest guys.
Yeah.
And I wanted to try to beat them when they were at their best, because otherwise it just feels hollow.
Yeah. What about, are you doing some horse clinics or something? I feel like I've seen something on maybe Paige's Facebook page or something that you've been doing some of that. Are you, or just occasionally?
I'm occasionally doing things that I get asked to do that I feel like can have a chance of helping the horse. And it's not that much, you know. Like last year, I went and spoke at a big horse summit that they have at a college in Dillon, Montana, that actually has horsemanship as part of their curriculum. Better horsemanship.
Yeah.
You know, I went and spoke at a thing down in Florida that was a big summit type thing for horses, and I'm going to a thing here this next month that's in Kentucky. They call it a Liberty Horse Festival, which I'm not, you know, I mean, it's just better horsemanship that they're trying to promote and show. And, you know, I feel like horses are just such a smart, sweet, kind animal, herbivore, herd animal, that's been treated like a lion for a long time, and they're misunderstood, and I feel like a lot of bad horsemanship has been handed down for a long, long time. Mm-hmm. And, you know, for me, I've done it all. I've done every bad thing you can do. I've done everything that doesn't work that you can do. I've done everything that is mind-numbing, repetitive, that doesn't work. And so that caused me to seek better horsemanship, and the things that I've learned from guys, you can't unsee it.
Right.
You know, you can't unsee it, and how much better it works. And I've had guys like Dennis Reese, poured his heart and soul into me and teaching me, and when he turned the light on for me about how the horse sees all the cockamamie stuff that we're doing, and then how they really see things. And it took a long time, you know. This isn't something you learn in a weekend or at a clinic. You know, he poured lots of time into me, and once you see it and kind of are on that other side of it, you can't unsee it, and you can't forget it, and you can't go back to the stuff that you were doing before.
Yeah.
That's, you know, a bunch of repetitive, mind-numbing stuff that doesn't work, and you know, us humans, we're making everything that we want the horse to do the thing that's hard for the horse to do, and we don't know we're doing that.
Right.
And there, you know, it's just those things that I hope to be able to pass along things that are going to give people a better deal and give their horse a better deal. And my kid, you know, like my kids, you know, maybe they won't even appreciate it the way I do because they never lived the other side of the coin.
Yeah.
But, you I want them to have some knowledge that's gonna make their life with horses way more enjoyable and way safer.
Yeah, 100%. And you talk about Dennis Reese pouring into you. You and Butch did the same thing for me. Like just all those hours we would just ride. I mean, I look back and I think, man, that was just a lucky time in my life that I happened to be able. You were kind of in the same place where you were able. It was just lined up where I got to ride with y'all a lot. It was really fun, educational, all those things.
It's what I enjoy. Horses are what I enjoy.
I was going to say, why didn't anybody talk about bullmanship or cattlemanship, or it's like, what are those bucking bulls like? Are they mean, just want to kill you animals? Because I'll see some of them just in the back getting petted and fed by hand. Is there any parallel?
I think they're very similar. Horses and cattle, they're both herbivores, they're both herd animals. And, there's some guys out there like my friend Martin Black. He teaches a lot of stockmanship, and he knows his stuff. And there's other guys as well. And it really, it's pretty darn close to the same. I would say it's almost exactly the same. The difference is you're not trying to do the same thing with a cow that you're trying to do with a horse.
Yeah.
But as far as the way they see the world and the way things work, it's the same. And if you think of the human condition and how we are, we can make the thing we want the hardest thing for the cow to do without knowing that we're doing it. And so like growing up, if you put me in 1,000 acres and said, take that cow out that gate, I was on her. And I was trying to shove her out that gate. Well, the next thing I knew, she'd go anywhere in that pasture but to that gate. And I didn't understand why. I just thought it was her. Right. I hated her for it.
Yeah.
And, once you learn to make anything that way easy and anything back this way a little more difficult, she'll put herself through the gate. You don't even you can just sit there on your horse.
Yeah.
And so that's the same thing with horses, and the same thing that we do that we don't know we're doing. We're making the thing that we want the hardest thing for the horse to do. And what's funny is they'll still do it for us sometimes. And not only do we make it the hardest, but we make it the scariest, the most painful, the most, go down the list of all the different things that we do with the torture devices and things like that. And we're just ignorant that we're doing that.
Yeah.
Because we've been told this narrative that makes sense to the human, but it doesn't make sense to the horse.
Is there any thread to pull on there from a bucking bull's, like people that see a bucking bull and don't understand it, or I really don't. What makes them buck? Is that a thing they're trained to do? Is it naturally in them? Is there something there to talk about?
Well, I think that, like I said, I think cattle are very similar. Bulls have a lot of testosterone. They're like horses and people in the fact that they're all different. They all have different temperaments. They all have different personalities. They have some that can be mean when it's go time and gentle as a lamb in the back pens. Or you have some that are gentle in the back pens and they're gentle out there too.
Yeah.
And they buck.
Right.
And they just, you're a foreign object that they're not used to, and they want you off.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing is it's the bull, the male anything in the wild kingdom. They have this testosterone that makes them tough and makes them mean and makes them learn to fight for what they for the breeding or whatever. And so, that's, I think different bulls have different testosterone levels and different temperaments, and some of them feel like they're in that they feel like they're backed into a corner and they have no choice but to fight. And then you see some that they don't have them in it at all. You try another bull that'll walk out to shoot and just stop and stand there. Yeah. So it's everything. It's like a racehorse, and how do you find a Kentucky Derby winner? Well, you tell me. They're not easy to find, and nobody has a formula. Not even in cloning, breeding, none of it. There's no formula.
Yeah.
That's proven over and over and over again. it's so much of it we don't understand what. And then the athletic ability. You might have some. I've seen some bulls that are tough enough, mean enough, but they just don't have the ability. They don't have the physical ability.
How much better are bucking bulls? How much more athletic are bucking bulls today than they were 20 years ago?
I think there's so many more of them, because of all of the breeding. I think they're more professional. I think they play the game more the way we see wanting them to play it. Where, back in my day, or really even before that, so many of the bulls, there were some treacherous, scary, very hard to ride bulls, but they didn't fit the mold of kick over their head and turn back and spin and buck. I've seen bulls that be 6 feet in the air and almost upside down, doing crazy stuff back in the 60s or 40s, 50s.
Yeah.
So, it's almost, to me, like the bulls have definitely went in the direction that you would want them to go. They didn't get bred to be more treacherous and more mean and more like big and scary and giant. They've been bred to be more athletic, and you go to a PBR, every single one of them kicks over his head and turns back to the right or the left, right there in the gate or both.
Yeah.
And that was the dream of a bull rider, is that's what you wanted. And now there's just, in the PBR, that our dream was to make it in the PBR where it was a total riding contest and never a drawing contest. And, I would say we achieved that. I would say that you're not, now there's going to be bulls that fit you better than others or all that sort of stuff, but if you go and you ride all your bulls, I promise you're going to win.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the case back in,
yeah,
like pre-PBR. You might go to a rodeo where that performance, there was 15 bull riders or 10 bull riders or whatever, and there might be one good bull, or there might be 2 good bulls, or there might even be 5 good bulls. But still, there was 10 guys that weren't getting on a good bull.
Yeah.
They were just, and that was something that was horrible, because it didn't matter how good you are, it didn't matter how prepared you were, none of that mattered. You just got the unlucky lottery ticket.
Yeah. Well, I think that was really insightful, and it had to be done by some guys who lived in that world. Like, I think the PBR really can't even be dreamed up by somebody that wasn't a bull rider, because you felt it, you lived it, you saw, like, hey, we're all good, but sometimes half of us don't even have a chance.
Yeah, or quite a bit more than half, really. Yeah. I think that, rodeo's the biggest part of my life. Mm-hmm. And who I am and what I have and what I've been able to do all comes from that. But where the PBR was born is not being an association. And so the PRCA is the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association, and that's the difference. If the PBR was the PBRA, if it was the Professional Bull Riders Association, it would have all of what I think of. I wouldn't even say, it's just different. An association is like comparing a dually to a race car, or
yeah,
whatever.
Sure. It's just they're not apples
apples to oranges.
Yeah.
And we wanted to, where an association is based on what's best for the members. And that's what they're thinking about. What's best for me? What's best for me? What's best for me? Well, in rodeo, you look at it, it's pretty fragmented, because you have all the different events. You even have the specialty acts and all that different stuff. Well, everybody's saying, well, what's best for me? What's best for me? We wanted to run it like a sports property and have our consumer. We wanted every decision to be based on what's best for our consumer. And that's where it was born, and I think that's where, it's been able to find its place. It's different than rodeo. Absolutely. And rodeo's awesome. You look at all the towns across the country, and it comes to Stephenville. It's coming here in Stephenville, Texas in a
yeah.
a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And it's so fun for people to go and take their kids and put on their hat and their boots and, you know, and go experience Americana and things that are our history and our roots and all those things. But, you know, the PBR is more of a rock show, and
Yeah.
it's high energy, and it's a sports property that we thought if we can make it better for our consumer, it's going to get better for everybody else. Instead of saying, how do I make it better for me? We said, well, if we can make it better for our consumer, then it's going to get better for me.
It inevitably has to, yeah. So what are you thinking about telling these football boys? You got anything in your mind?
We're going to go.
Yeah. So I've talked you into giving them a little motivational speech or something to think about, you know. What have you got a plan?
Oh yeah, I mean I did an interview this morning about the 75th anniversary of the National High School Rodeo Association, the finals and all that, and it took me right back to all the things that I was able to learn, and a lot of it, you know, we're talking about, you know, that I always say that you see, especially like if we're going to use football as an example, every single championship game that I've ever seen, pro or college or high school or whatever, I say that there's always one team trying to win it and one team trying not to lose it. And the latter doesn't work.
Yeah, right.
And so it kind of goes back to that thing I was talking about walking across the tube before. You know, pressure is man-made and self-inflicted. There's no such thing as pressure other than in your mind.
Yeah.
And so the biggest part, I feel like, in sports is either being born where you thrive in that situation, where you're the one that says, I want the ball, or you teach yourself to thrive in that situation. And either way, you've got to learn to thrive in that situation and be able to be that fluid self that isn't going, oh man, now this board's up 100 stories, you know.
Yeah,
but
you
to
just
be able
walk
to just
across it.
Be able to just walk across it, you've got to train yourself how to do that.
Yeah.
I can't teach you the way I do it because our brains may work completely different, but you've still got to figure out a way. It might be, for some guys, it might be they love showing off. You know, for another guy, it might be, you know, it's different for everyone. And when I look at the great athletes that you've seen since the beginning of time, really, in anything that you look at, one way or another, they figured out how to not pressure up, how to thrive in that atmosphere, and trying not to lose it is like trying not to fall off of that board.
Yeah.
You know, the other way, when it's on the ground, you're not going, oh man, I can't fall off. You just think, oh, I'm just going to walk across it. So you've got to make it feel that way to you when you're competing.
And that's the funny thing about that is it changes even in the game. Like even during the game, that can change. Like you got to be ready to address
Never
that.
goes away.
Yeah, address that pressure as it comes, because football, for example, you might fumble and they might get the momentum away from you as a team.
Yeah.
Now, are you gonna pressure up over that, or just say, back to what I know how to do? I'll bet that happen in bull riding too, even in 8 seconds.
Absolutely. And that's what I was telling you earlier about, like, it goes on your whole career. Well, it goes on the whole game.
Yeah.
And, you know, sometimes you're watching a college game and you'll watch a team get an egg broke in them. You know, you'll watch that interception that just deflates them.
Yeah.
And then now they're trying not to lose.
Right.
And that, you know, and you can feel and watch the energy change. And I always believe that the winners learn how to keep that going. And even when you're down, like you watch Tom Brady, you watch those great quarterbacks, Peyton Manning, Mahomes, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
When they're down, they can't wait to get back on the field because they know they can do it. And that's the reason those guys are special.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's throwing and catching a ball.
That's
you know
right.
what I mean? Like it's not like they have some magical laser pinpoint deal. They all throw, especially at that level, they all throw the ball good.
Yeah, that's right.
And they got guys that can catch the ball like you and I don't even know about.
Yeah.
And so to me, that, that's going back to what I was said earlier. I believe that it's mental.
Yeah.
It's mental, because it's same in rodeo. When you get to the highest level, everybody's good. As far as the mechanics, the physically, everybody knows what to do.
Yeah.
But some guys can do it day in and day out, whatever kind of bull in and out.
Yeah.
They can do it every time.
I think it's, at least in high school age, maturity. It's like, can the coach, can the parents, can the kids mature to a level and understand what you're talking about from pressure? I did it. Like, I couldn't. Like, I would pressure up. Like, I look back and I'm like, why would I do that? I don't know. I would just put the importance of winning so high that the idea that I might fall off that 2x4 just was death, you know. So, and I think you just got to get to a place where you can say, I know I've done the work. I know I've got the skills. I'm going to go compete.
Well, another thing, and this takes me back to that interview this morning about the anniversary of the high school finals. Is I distinctly remember I wanted to win a national title bad. I'd won everything at the state levels, and winning a national title was super important to me. And we got to the high school finals, and I didn't compete the way I can compete. And my mom told me, "You're trying too hard, Ty. You're trying too hard." And boy, that pissed me off, because I thought that's what this sport is trying hard. But I didn't know how to try hard in the right way. I didn't know how to try as hard as I possibly could without trying too hard.
Yeah.
And I always compare it to, say, like in boxing. You don't go out there and put your head down and just swing your arms as hard and try as hard as you can. That's not, you're not going to win like that.
That's right.
And you may be trying harder than the other guy, but that's not going to do it. And that's kind of the way it was for me. I'd get there and I'd just try so hard that I wasn't fluid. I wasn't focused. I wasn't being able to make the split-second decisions in a confident, easy way where your body just reacts. And that's something that I learned at that level. And and that's why I'm going and talking to your high school football team today, is to try to give them clues of how maybe they can figure it out for themselves going forward, because that's what really kids sports are about, is being able to learn those things to where you handle whatever it is better.
Yep. Could be everything you're going to end up facing in your life.
Yeah.
Could be everything.
Well,
I think it's great for the coaches too. Like, I think the coaches should hear what you're, that whole concept. I mean, they know it. It's part of what they're trying to teach, but are they telling themselves those things?
Yeah, and then sometimes, when you're an adult and looking back to a kid, sometimes it's hard to remember what you felt like when you were 15.
Yeah.
Or when you're somebody that's well versed in something, it's hard to remember what it was like when you were learning it.
Yeah.
You don't even know, like the part that we're telling them ain't even the part that they're struggling with, because we can't even really know that they're struggling with that part because we're so far past it. And so, good coaching or good teaching is fascinating to me. When you see the guys that can get results with every guy, almost every team, every year, that is a super special talent that somebody has, and that's something that ain't taught. Like, you don't go to coach school and they just tell you how to do that. It's a special person, because I could tell you or Joe or whoever, I could tell them everything that I know. And that doesn't mean that it works for them. It does, mentally or physically. And that's the thing with sport or life or business or anything. You've kind of got to figure out, like you and I were talking about, like you and your brother. You guys are polar opposite, or not polar opposite, but you guys are different in a lot of ways. And And your approach and his approaches are different, and you were smart enough to figure out that you got to let him have his approach.
Yeah.
You know, and that would be like a good coach, you know, that where you're not just beating on that square peg into the round hole.
Mm-hmm. It makes me think, it really was so, Larry, I bet, was a great teacher and a great coach, just from the story you're telling me. Like, he didn't tell you one thing about riding. Like, he was talking to you constantly about how to mentally think about the game you're fixing to get into.
But the cool thing about Larry is he was doing that in his own way.
Yeah.
You know, he wasn't saying, "Okay, Ty, here's what you do." Right. So when he wasn't doing that. He was like, "I want to see what this kid does if I make him think he's flying an airplane at 13 and the first one he's been in." Yeah. You know, and he just knew how to create situations that let you figure it out.
Yeah.
And, you know, that was like when he called me up in front of 500 people to speak when I was 13. I was horrified. Like, I'd have rather fought a bear than go up there. But I went up there, and I did it because my hero said for me to do it. So I kind of felt like I had no choice. But when I left there, all of a sudden I was that much better at that.
Yeah. Yeah, little.
You know what I mean? And so that's where he was teaching me to be able to interact with the public, with fame, with interviews, with whatever. But he was teaching me in such a hidden way that you didn't even know you were learning anything.
Yeah. That to me is really awesome stuff. I mean, my dad did that. Like, he would teach me stuff, not explicitly. I think parents, I try to think about ways of doing that similar thing. Like, how can I teach the girls this concept without preaching it to them? Because me preaching it to them
makes them close their ears.
Yeah, they've quit listening already. There's no way they're going to pick it up. But and if you can figure it out.
Yeah, like we were talking about, you know, both of my kids, this is a perfect analogy. Both of my kids, I would tell them anything that was hot when they were babies. Don't touch that. It'll burn you. And you'll tell every kid that 1,000,000 times, and they're going to touch something that's hot, and as soon as they do, you never have to worry about it again.
Right.
You know, and that's that perfect example of you've got to let them figure it out, because you telling them 500 times didn't help.
Yep.
But they touched it one time, and you never have to say it again for the rest of their life.
That's right. Thanks for your time, buddy.
Yeah, good.